Welcome to the Farming Without the Bank podcast, the show with a no BS approach to money, hosted by a farm strategy expert and authorized IBC practitioner. Join us as we get real and expose the flaws of traditional financial institutions in order to help farmers take control of their finances, create peace of mind, grow their wealth, and leave a legacy. Now, here's your host, Mary Jo Ehrman.
Hello, and thank you for being here. I appreciate it. If you are new, welcome. If you are an avid listener, thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, today, let's talk about the bank's control. And there are, when we talk about bankers' control, we talk about a lot of things, but I have heard in the past about banks that are calling notes, foreclosing on people, whatever. And these people have made all their payments. They've never missed a payment. They actually have more land as collateral, all the good stuff. And so then it becomes a question of why. Why are the banks taking or calling a note? And there are a couple of things. Now, when I first started, let's just go back just a little bit. When I first started working with farmers and ranchers, I really felt bad for farmers and ranchers that the bank was screwing them over. And I still do to some extent. But what I have learned is that farmers and ranchers don't always keep their books. There are some of them that keep their books and they do well. They know exactly what they've made. They know exactly what their expenses are. There isn't anything that is a big surprise at the end of the day. The bank wants to know that. So when I started, I was thinking, the banker is the bad guy, right? And there are some bad characters in the bank. There are no question. But at the end of the day, the farmer is not any more special than the guy down the street that has a business. That business does not know if people are going to come in the doors. Look at what happened during COVID. Your business owners really experienced what farmers kind of go through all the time when farmers don't know what's going to happen with rain, right? They're subject to the weather where not everybody is subject to the weather. You do have businesses that have hurricanes go through their area, tornadoes, whatever, wipe a business out. And where, hopefully insurance pays for that. Lord knows there were a bunch of people during COVID that the whole COVID thing just wiped their business out. And so it really can happen with anybody. The difference is most farmers don't have accessibility to cash because they've always bought things to avoid taxes. Or they just don't, the cost to produce is so high compared to if I'm a business, I can just buy what I can afford. I don't have to have the millions and millions of dollars in there. So there's some differences, but at the end of the day, the farmer needs to keep their numbers. So the bank ultimately is in control. So think about this. If you are doing business with a bank, and I frankly don't care in what capacity, if you are doing business with a bank, they now become the boss. They get to tell you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it because they lent you money. It's no different than if I came into your operation and said, hey, I want to be a capital investor in this operation. And if I become a very large capital investor, all of a sudden, you are in charge of taking orders from me, right? Or your new role is to take orders from me because I'm in charge. I have the money. Money talks. Remember, Nelson said, those with the money make the rules. And that is the bank. And so when you are doing business with the bank, they have ultimate control. They can call a note if they want. And so sometimes I will hear this, but I always keep in mind that if I have somebody that I'm meeting with that the bank is calling their note, I can see what their numbers are, but I'm only seeing what they're giving me. So if they're lying to me and making it look better than it is, then I think, why is the bank calling that note? There are times where a bank will call a note or they will hold collateral that should be released because they are being audited by the feds, or something is going on where they do not have enough collateral to back up all the loans they have done. So think about that. If the bank is over lending, thinking they're not going to get caught, and all of a sudden they come in and get audited and they get caught, they're going to have to save their own butt. And they're going to do that at your expense. And so when I hear people say, well, the bank called my note, did they call the note because you don't have books that are correct, that you don't have the income coming in? Why did they call the note? There are very few times where a bank is going to call a note on somebody that is making payments. It happens, but it's rare. The majority of those notes are going to be called on people that don't know how to manage their finances. And in that point, I cannot defend the farmer. I am sorry, that is going to piss a lot of people off. But if you are not running your farm like a business, if you don't know what your expenses are, you don't know what your income is, you don't know what enterprise on the farm is producing. Are the cattle producing? Is the hay producing income? What's creating cash flow? If we don't know that, and you don't know your bottom line of what you need to break even when you sell grain, if you're going to plant corn and you have no idea what your break even is that you need to sell that corn for, you are not running your operation like a business. And guess what? If you don't do that, the bank is going to come in and say, hey, you know what? You've had 2 or 3 bad years. You are not a good business owner. I don't want to lend money to you. Why is that any different than the bank coming in to me and saying, Mary Jo, you are not a good business owner. I don't want to lend money to you. It isn't any different, you guys. It is a business. And if you can't manage your money, you are always going to be in trouble with the bank. Now, there is an exception, like I've said already. There are some banks that are criminal. I get that. But what I see the majority of the time is that when people are in a bad position and they come to me, and it is almost every single time, they don't know their books. And then they're mad at the bank, or they're mad at the neighbors for getting to be big farmers, or they're mad at everybody except themselves because they are not paying attention. Now, obviously, that is not going to be you listening, because if you're listening, you're either somebody that's already running it like a business because you're being educated here, or you're somebody that wants to and you haven't in the past. And so if that's you and you haven't in the past and you don't know your numbers, then go figure out your numbers. What are all of your costs? Down to fuel, land rent. Even if you have money that has been lent to you from mom and dad, yes, put that on a note. It's really funny how I will meet with somebody and they'll be like, oh yeah, and I owe mom and dad some money, or I owe grandpa and grandma some money, or grandpa and grandma lets me, rent that for free. And I've talked about that before too. Those are people you owe. It does not matter that they are not a certified bank. You owe them money. Put it in your books and make good on it. Why should they be giving you any handouts? If you cannot make enough money to pay their loan back, then you're doing it wrong. Figure out how to do it so you have the cash flow. I don't care if that means you have to work off the farm. You have that payment. If you would have borrowed that money from the bank, guess what? You would have made the payment. You would have figured out how to do it, or you wouldn't have borrowed the money. If you are borrowing money and you are doing that on a personal level where somebody is playing banker, they should be holding you accountable, and they could also call your note. There should be a contract there. At the end of the day, this whole thing is about banks' control. And if you think for 1 second that you have money or you have a loan at the bank and you're in control, my friend, you have lost your marbles. You are not in control. They can call that note tomorrow. You are in control if they call that note and you have the cash to pay it off and you'll be just fine. But that is not the majority of cases out there. People really think, well, I'm in control. I have a relationship with my banker. Somebody said to me just last week, well, the bank is good until the bank isn't good, right? Everything's good at the bank. The banker's going to lend you money. The banker's going to do whatever he can for you until he doesn't. And then at that point, guess what? You're SOL. And you're going to have to go find a different bank and you're going to have to start over. And if your bank is manipulating you, the only way a bank can be manipulating your numbers is if you don't know your numbers. Think about that. If you are saying, I made a payment, but I don't know where they put that payment. I don't know if they put it on the line of credit. I don't know why they put it to a note. I hear this a lot. I don't know where they put it. Well, if you don't know where they put it, that means you're not keeping track of your numbers. And whose fault is that? You're allowing the bank freedom to manipulate you. And you then are going to go back and say the bank is dishonest? Well, why would you ever think they should be honest? They're banks. They're in the business of handling people's money. Should they be honest? Should we assume they should be honest? Yeah, we should assume that, but reality proves they are nothing but crooked in a lot of cases. So if you're complaining that somebody else is managing that somebody else is taking advantage of you, that is your problem. You better look internally and say, have I given the bank too much control? That I don't even know what's going on. They're basically running everything. If that's the case, then you better find a bookkeeper. You better learn how to do the books yourselves. I don't care what that takes. You better do it because you do not know what they're doing. It is no different than if I have a business and I know a guy that owns a business that he was allowing the people, the distributor that he bought from, he was just writing them a check. And then he finds out they're not applying it to the right jobs he was doing. So he had a huge mess because he didn't pay attention to his books. Doesn't matter if you're a farmer or business owner, pay attention to those books. Keep that in mind. This was a little bit of a rant today, but keep that in mind that the bank has control and you do not. They let you believe that you do, but you do not. Even if you have all your stuff in order, even if you've been making all the payments, even if you do have books, you're not going to be able to be manipulated because you're going to know where the money went. But if they call a note, do you have the money to pay it? They ultimately have control. And I've seen it happen with farmers that have good numbers, or at least the numbers they give me are good numbers. And now a note's being called. In those situations, typically another bank will pick you up pretty quickly. But we have to go through the hassle and the stress of another bank picking us up. Whoever gives you the most amount of money is in control. You're going to believe you are. But even if I lend you money, I have a lot of questions because I want my money back. And the bank wants their money back. So keep that in mind, my friends. Okay, let me know comments, questions, concerns. If you have a topic that you want to address, let me know that. Mary Jo at Without the Bank. All right, if you've not gotten the books, go to farmingwithoutthebank.com and grab your books. My book and Nelson's book for sure. You should have the pair of those. All right, I'll talk to you in the next podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. We hope today's episode has inspired you to take control of your finances in new ways. Don't forget to check out our website, farmingwithoutthebank.com, and engage with us on our Facebook page, Farming Without the Bank. Join us next week as we smash more financial myths and empower you to accomplish your financial goals.